Welcome back, everyone. Today I got another song analysis video for you guys. I'm going to be doing the song Pray by Ka off of the album Descendants of Cain. I'm just going to do the rest of this album because it's so amazing. Verse 1. What I see from my level, the devil's in a serious phase. For a smart fight, God might have to stop working in mysterious ways. So Ka he knows how to start a song, man. He hits you with the deep lines right off the bat. What he sees from his level being, kind of the ghetto, Brownsville, one of the toughest neighborhoods in the United States. From that level, or just from any level, I think we can all relate to right now that the devil is in a serious phase, that evil is prominent in the world. Another way of saying this I really like off of Kendrick Lamar's High Power is the devil's probably clocking double shifts on all of his jobs. Another brilliant way of saying it, that, you know, the devil is working harder today. For a smart fight, God might have to stop working in mysterious ways. Now, that kind of goes against the whole idea of God, the whole kind of purpose, at least in the Christian doctrine, is for God to be mysterious so that you go to him, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open sort of thing. But just an amazing line. Anytime somebody's kind of like shaking their fists at God and can do it in a poetic way, it comes off as pretty badass, I guess. The ghetto's unfairness prepared us to live in a cage. So again, referencing where he kind of grew up in Brownsville. When you grow up in a neighborhood that's not as unlike prison as you would hope it to be, it can sometimes prepare you for that life and almost guide you towards it. So living in an area like Brownsville, surrounded by people who are ex-convicts, soon-to-be convicts, it's only going to lead you in a spiral downwards. And yeah, that's prepared us to live in a cage. Whew. So it's so much more visually striking when somebody says cage instead of prison. Still trying to find that silver lining from when N-words were slaves. Oh boy. Yeah, I kind of have to get political here. So, I mean, to try to provide some sort of silver lining, I know this is tough and people will get upset about this no matter what, but to find some sort of silver lining from Africans being slaves in particular is that there was the emancipation of the slaves. The Brits were the first to do it, and then the U.S. came along with that, fought a whole civil war over it, and freed the slaves, which hadn't been done before. For the previous 6,000, 10,000, who knows how long, all the slaves that basically were ever had were buried underneath what they built. You look at the Great Wall of China, there's like millions of people buried under the Great Wall of China. We don't even know how many people died building just that one thing. So many people have been enslaved over human history. Every single color's been enslaved. Every single ethnicity's been enslaved. Everybody's enslaved everybody else. It just so happened that most of the time you would just kind of use your slaves until they were done, and then you just killed them. You didn't let them go. So if there is a silver lining, it's the fact that we got over that hump and we did free the slaves. So that could be a silver lining. I know it's hard to look at history that way, but you really have to explore all of human history and get a full scope view of slavery to kind of understand just how well the emancipation of the slaves went in the previous couple centuries. Another thing I would say is, this is also kind of a controversial topic, but the Middle East took, I think, twice as many slaves from Africa as the Americas did. Not to say that the numbers justify anything, but what the Arabs did with their slaves is they castrated them so that they couldn't reproduce, so that they didn't have any hope at all. No hope for any future. Even if they knew that they were never going to be freed, there was no hope that maybe their children could be free because they couldn't have children. Their bloodline ended. And to me, that's much darker than what happened in the Americas. And of course, slavery's at its highest right now. There's more people in slavery today than there ever was in all of human history. So So if there is a silver lining to being a black slave in America, it's that it's over. That would be the silver lining. And I know that there's so much pain and trauma that comes with that that I can't even begin to relate with because look at me, right? I'm German and French. but but yeah, it is tough. It is tough to look at history with a silver lining, especially when your people have been subjected to such horrors. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be, a Jew today, looking back at the Holocaust and then what's happening in Israel right now. Like, I mean, it must be terrifying, especially when your numbers are so low, especially when there's 2 billion Muslims, there's 2 billion Christians, but there's only like 14 million Jews, like, I can't even imagine what that feels like. So that's all I'll say on that line for now. Hopefully, I didn't get myself into trouble. It wasn't good where I stood at the precipice looking for an exodus. So, a little bit in reference to the previous line, Exodus being a story about the freeing of slaves and what that means. I think if people took that story seriously, they could learn a lot because when the slaves are freed in Exodus, when they get out of Egypt, they don't immediately get into the promised land. They're not immediately in heaven. Things aren't immediately better once they get out of slavery. They have to, suffer for 40 years in the desert trying to figure out how do they build their society? What rules do they keep? What rules do they throw out? They start worshiping false idols again. Like if people took that Exodus story seriously, it could do a lot of healing, I think, for the modern kind of contentions with the American slave trade. So it's interesting that he references Exodus. I mean, not exactly. Ka references a lot of religious themes in his music. Was trying, but tried to keep it alive during the death of this. Most are defined by most strenuous times, now told effortless. So yeah, your most strenuous times, the times in your life where you experience the most trauma, the times where you occur your scars, these are the moments in your life that are going to not so much define you, but make you. And one day, hopefully, you can laugh about those times, tell them effortlessly, look back on them with a somewhat of a fondness. Like, yeah, those were formative experiences, even though they were tough, even though they were hard, even though evil might have been done upon me or I might have done evil upon somebody else. I came out of that, and that redemption, it could take a while to have the redemption, and then it could take even longer to realize that you had the redemption, if that makes any sense. So that's a really cool line. If urged for more proverbs, check my Old Testaments. Again, using a little bit of religious wordage here. If you want more from him, if you really like this album or this song, you can go back and you can listen to his old albums because there's just more gems in those. Really cool line, kind of like braggadocious way of saying, yeah, check out my other music if you think this stuff's good. I like to write righteous even though it's secular. This line I don't exactly understand because I was kind of under the impression that Ka was religious. I don't think anybody should know or know for sure what anybody else's view on religion is. Like, you shouldn't know for sure if somebody's religious. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like that's such a personal question. Like asking somebody, do you believe in God, isn't like, it's not as surface level as that question appears. Because, I mean, it takes a lifetime to define what God is, anyways. Like, to figure out what that means. So I don't think that I should know if Ka is religious or not, but it's interesting that he writes a line that's like, I like to write righteous, so I like to write in a way that's religious, even though it's secular, so even though it's not religious. I'm not exactly sure what he means by that line. I'd love to know, but anyways, birthed from the dirt like Adam, the patterns in my molecular. So obviously he understands. This is kind of in reference to the previous line because it goes religious and then kind of a scientific atheistic line. So I think he knows that there's a gap or a bridge between the gap there, that The Adam and Eve story is, you could read it almost in a way like it's a scientific abstraction of what is encoded in you. You know, the Genesis story is so deep. I don't want to get into it today because that'll be opening a can of worms, and I'll be sitting here talking for like 2 hours. Maybe in the future I'll talk about Genesis, but that's such a weird line. Birth from the dirt like Adam, the patterns in my molecular. So the patterns in my molecular, he understands that there are patterns within him that he can't change, and that's what the story of Genesis is trying to show. It's trying to, in a story way, tell you what the patterns are of life and how you can push against them and how you can't push against them. I think that's the whole point of the Bible, is to like describe reality in a story and give you some guidelines on where can you push reality, where can you not, where is it going to snap back at you and hit you. Anyways, she's in line to be mine. Make sure she's woke before I slept with her. Brilliant. Just brilliant writing there. Make sure she's woke before I slept with her could be, in reference to like making sure she's actually awake. You go to parties, you get drunk. Sometimes people pass out before you even get to the act, and then some people do the act anyways, and then we all know where that leads to. Words that rhyme with grape. It's not good. Anyways, it could mean that, or it could mean, the opposite, that she's woke, that she's awake, self-aware before he slept with her, which that's a good rule of thumb. You should make sure that you connect with a person on a deep level before you go to the step of being physical with them. That's not common in today's world, and I don't know why. I don't know why it's like, oh, let's sleep with each other first and have the fun and then not connect. It's like, you're going to regret that for the rest of your life. Like, like you are. Like, you might not think it now, but you will later. Later, you will be like, why did I do the deed that creates children with this person, but I never got to like connect with them on an intellectual level? Like, that's how you're supposed to connect first. You make sure that you're compatible intellectually and emotionally, and then you do the thing that makes the children. But anyways, I won't speak too much on that. It's not respected to be wise, to heckle guys who got the heckler. A tricky line there, but I think it's something like, it's not wise to make fun of somebody when they're down, because they might come back and make fun of you. Like, if you can dish it out, make sure you can take it. I think this is somewhere in that vein. It's a tricky line. I'm not too sure. As always, let me know in the comments what you guys think. I can't crack every puzzle. A past passion is what I pursued in my solitude. Was never gassed, you can ask, I'm a solid dude. Cool little rhyme scheme there. So, a past passion is what I pursued in my solitude. So when he was alone, he pursued a past passion, which, I mean, it could be a number of things. It's supposed to be ambiguous. It could mean drugs. It could mean sexual intercourse with somebody. It could mean self-harm. I don't think so, but like, it could be a number of different things. Some sort of passion that you had in the past that is bad for you, that you're still engaging with when you're alone, right? Cool line. Was never gassed, you can ask, I'm a solid dude. He's just basically saying, like, ask around, man. Like, I was never bullshitting people. I'm a solid, straight up guy. I learned to quiet my mind them nights we was out of food. Again, I've mentioned this before in another Ka song analysis, that when you are hungry, you become hunger. You could read books on it. I think Red Famine is a great recommendation for those of you who don't know enough about the Holodomor, which is probably most of you. You can go and you can read about how in the Soviet Union in the 1930s, I think 1933, they were passing out posters in Ukraine saying, remember, it's wrong to eat your children, because people were eating their children. They were selling children's body parts for food to get any sort of money to buy some real food, hopefully. But yeah, people resorted to eating children. They resorted to eating their neighbors, their own children, which is just a mind, it's just a rabbit hole to go down. But you can read about stuff like this and you can really see how people become hunger. They're not themselves there anymore. Like, when you go multiple days, a week without food, like you become hunger. Your ego collapses in and you become the hunger. Like I mean this literally. You can't even think of other things. There's no way to think creatively. There's no way, like you are just thinking about food and devouring whatever is in front of you that's edible. Like the world looks differently when you're that hungry. I'm not saying that Ka was like starving to death, but any sort of starving definitely turns you into something that you're not. And late nights, like it's impossible to sleep, man. Like I've cut weight before, and that's just like one day of like not eating, and that's enough to like drive me insane. Like I can't sleep. I'm like up the entire night, like pulling an all-nighter. Like, yeah, I totally understand what he means by that line. A few times almost expired, should have been tired, but I renew. A few times almost expired, I mean, that could just mean like die, death, get killed. Should have been tired, but I renew, so he should have like laid down and accepted it almost, but he renewed himself, which is important. You never want to lay down and accept death. That's like that poem from, what movie? Interstellar. Fight against the dying of the light. I forget who wrote that poem, but amazing poem. Definitely true. Always fight till the end. I mean, you should. It's in your DNA, so never lay down. The place I fell from, I embrace and welcome. That could mean heaven. Could mean like just the highest place. Yeah. Played bad cards bad. Can't be mad whoever dealt them. Again, kind of in reference to God. So in life, sometimes you're born here, in a nice little hamlet in Canada, and you're white, and you're young, and you're healthy, and everything's going good for you, and you should be grateful for that because you got good cards. But there are other people who are born with bad cards, who are born, with a skin color that's looked down upon, that are born unhealthy, maybe with some serious disease at birth, that are born in countries where they have to walk miles a day just to get clean water. So you can be born with good cards or bad cards, and there's varying degrees to that. Some people are born with royal flushes. They're born into houses that are 10 times the size of mine, with 2 maids looking after them. Some people are born into absolute poverty and they never get out of it. But those are the cards that you're dealt. And you can't blame the dealer for that. It's almost random. It is pretty much random. If you look at the whole scope of human history, it's really just a roll of the dice. And where you're born is also much like that. So you can't blame the dealer. It's random. It's like blackjack. You can't blame the dealer. But you can play your cards good or bad. That's up to you. So if you get dealt a 2 and a 7 in a poker game, a poker player might know, like, that's a horrible hand. You should fold that immediately. And by folding, that could be, I could mean that as like suicide, like just check out. But you can bluff with a 2 and a 7 and you can win the pot. You can win the whole game with a 2 and a 7. It's been done before. So if you get dealt bad cards in life, don't shake your fists at God. Don't blame the dealer. Don't blame anybody else. Just accept what you have and play the best possible game you can with the cards that you were dealt. That's the best advice I could give. And it's a brilliant line that he collapses all of that into like 2 little sentences. But yeah, if you get played bad cards, you can still win the game. Trust me. I've seen it done before. And if you get played good cards, sometimes you'll play them bad and you'll go lower in life, so deep line there. Awesome line. If he ain't from the maelstrom, I never felt him. Friends that died, I feel would have survived if I was there to help them. Yeah, make sure you're there for your friends, man. I'll speak specifically to men right now. It's probably mostly men watching this video, not to exclude the women, but men in particular are not the greatest at showing their friends when they're going through tough times. They usually keep it pretty bottled up, and and just try to act the same and try to just be one of the guys, try to escape, but make sure you're checking in on your friends, men out there. Ask them how they're doing. Is there anything you want to talk about in your life? I know it can be, sappy and feel almost feminine, but it's important. Male suicide is at an all-time high, and we need to look out for each other. It's very important. So make sure your friends don't perish when you could have been there for them. Don't hold yourself, against that either. If you have a friend that commits suicide, don't hold it over your own head for the rest of your life. That's not healthy either, but every day just try to pick everybody up around you. We hit the chorus. As we bow our heads, may we receive any yield. Please receive any yield for real. May we please receive any yield. So he's asking for anything, any sort of food, any sort of yield, any sort of money. Just let us receive something, Lord. And that's just a very humble perspective to come through every day. Just give me anything. I'll take the smallest crumbs. Being happy with that's being truly humble, and that kind of attitude will get you far in life. Verse 2, with my last ask, me and my man's scared matter. At the end, ascend Jacob's ladder. Oh, man. He keeps throwing these biblical stories at me that they're going to take me way too long to dissect. And Jacob's ladder in particular is a very complicated one. So I'm going to skip that line for today. If you guys want to see me do like videos on these Bible stories and what I pull out of them, I try to analyze them from a more Jungian archetypical lens. I find that to be most useful for me. So if you guys want to see more videos like that, let me know. But yeah, I can't really get into Jacob's ladder today. That's a lot to unpack. As a youngin had to be the hunters was the only way to gather. This is also just in reference to like growing up in a very tough neighborhood. What do you have to do to eat? What do you have to do to get by? Sometimes you got to rob people. You got to steal. Sometimes that ends up in killing people. And that's the job of the hunter. You're stealing meat from another animal and killing it. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough, man. It's tough to draw those moral lines when like people are starving and then they kill somebody else and take their food and you're like, hey, that's wrong. It's like, yeah, it is, but like to what degree? Like to what degree is that evil? It's a hard question. It's very tough. But anyways, was built prime in that filth time. Now I'm trying to make it lather. Cool little, double entendre here, playing with soap and showering. But he was built in that filth, now trying to make it lather. So I think this is like turning lead to gold sort of thing, like an alchemy kind of line. So he had filth all over him. Now he's trying to turn that into like soap, trying to turn the bad into good. That's basically just the goal of life. That goes back to the playing bad cards bad thing. Like you can take bad cards and make them into good cards. You can take filth and you can make it into lather. You can take lead and turn it into gold. You can make good out of bad. And that's an important thing to know, that you can do that. Seems impossible. Sometimes we call it a miracle. So get banged trying to hang before you learn the ropes. Cool little boxing line there. If you go inside of a boxing gym and you start sparring before you know where the ropes are, you're going to get knocked out. You got to dance around the ring a bit. You got to get your footwork going. You got to know where the ropes are. That's what learning the ropes means. It means like actually knowing with your body how big is this ring. So you better know the space before you start challenging anybody. This goes with anything in life, whether you're starting a new job, whether you're going to a new country to live. Like you better know the area very well before you start challenging anybody on anything. And a cool way you can turn this over too is politics. Politics is picking a fight. That's like taking a stance, putting your foot in the ground. I believe in this, and if you believe in that, let's argue about it. So before you guys start throwing punches in politics, make sure you learn the ropes. Make sure you read history. I've read history like my entire life. I still don't think that I'm educated enough to like have solidified political opinions that I go out there espousing. I'll talk about politics with my friends and family, but I try to keep it off of my YouTube channel because I just don't know enough. And I've read hundreds of books on history. So make sure you learn the ropes before you start throwing punches. Very important. My brave folks stay cold. They was never turncoats. Turncoats, I think that just means like flipping, lying, switching teams. But my brave folks stayed cold. One thing that I'll say on cold is you come together when you're cold. This is one thing that I've noticed in Canada. Living in Canada my whole life is when the winter comes around, we shovel the snow off of other people's driveways. We pull each other out of ditches when we see people stuck. We even wipe off each other's windshields, sometimes in the middle of traffic. We buy coffee for the people behind us. In winter, we all come together. We look after each other. And in the summer, sometimes it could be the opposite. Things get riled up. There's more fights and stuff. So just a little tidbit on cold versus hot weather there. In the hood, handsome don't matter. Girls want who earn the most. I mean, that's not just in the hood, brother. That's the whole planet. I don't think looks matter as much for males, to be completely honest. I could be wrong. I'd love to hear a woman's perspective, but I think the main thing women look for is not even so much who earns the most, but who has the capability of earning the most. Women look for potential as well as they look for profit. So your potential to provide. I think that that's a little bit more accurate than what you've already provided, but there's a reason why older men usually marry younger women. It takes a little bit more time to build up that bread. Scene killers let off steam, then return to scenes as concerned folks, playing on the psychology of a killer. It's widely known that many killers go back to the scene of the crime that they committed, whether it's to revel in it, to be happy with what they did and to take pride in it, or to go back as actually a concerned folk. So I'll speak on that a little bit. Sometimes when you kill somebody, I think maybe most times when you kill somebody, I don't know what the numbers are, but a lot of the times when people kill somebody, it's a crime of passion. So what that means is like their emotions got riled up and they went to let off steam and they did something that they probably would have never done if they weren't in that heightened emotional state. So when they do go back to the scene, they are concerned folk. They're going back like, man, like, I hope he like wakes up or something. Like, I know I killed him, but like, please, like, let him wake up or something. They'll go back with some sort of regret because they know that, sober-minded them regrets it and would never do that. But in a heightened emotional state, people commit crimes of passion all the time. I mean, you're on YouTube right now. I'm sure you guys could find hundreds of videos of people who, murdered their husband or wife. Sometimes they murder their children too, which is horrible, but yeah. Killers let off steam, then return to the scenes as concerned folk. Price your brew and whatever you decide to do. So this is an important little life advice line. Anything you do in life, any work you make, any product you make sure you price it. Make sure you have a price, not just for the products you make, but for your time as well. If you show up to an employer and he asks you, what do you want to make an hour? This is an open-ended question. This is for you to answer. So you got to be, put your feet in the ground. If you say, oh, minimum wage is fine, he'll be like, okay, great. I don't have to pay you any more than I need to. That's awesome for him. So you can play it safe and say minimum wage, or you can say, I want to get paid $18 an hour. And he might say, well, normally we start people off at 17, but, he might not even say this out loud, but since you're so confident, I'm going to give you 18. And we'll start you out at there. And then that sets a bar for yourself, so you got to live up to the price that you just set for yourself. So it helps you work better, and you get more money, and your employer gets better work out of it. So make sure you always set your price, even if it's at a menial minimum wage job. Nobody's above any job. You can learn incalculable things from any job if you really pay attention. So make sure you set your price, though. Especially for artists out there. Like if you make a painting that you think is really good, set a price on it and stand on that price. Don't let people knock that price down. Don't let people say, the art's not that great. I'm not going to pay $300 for it. I'll give you $100. Don't settle for that. If you think it's worth $300, you sit on that and you wait until somebody pays you $300. And if nobody pays you $300, go make another artwork that's worth $500. And then once they see the $500, or maybe they see the $1,000, Maybe it's a few paintings down the line. They'll look back at the 300 and they'll go, damn, that's only 300. And then you'll be able to bump that price up. So make sure you set your prices and you stay with it for anything you do in life. At the height of that Ready Rock, every block was volatile. Just saying that, like, streets that have crack circling around them are volatile and unsafe and basically like a jungle. Yeah, people on crack are definitely not normal human beings. They're almost like aliens. They're a different breed. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that in my own city, going downtown in Edmonton. Sometimes it's scary. Here to blast, any day could be your last. That was probable. So if you're busting guns, shooting, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. That's just what's probable. So the second you pull out a gun, start waving it around, that's probably how you're going to die. You're going to die by somebody shooting you. You might get away with it for the first, couple people. You might get away with it, but eventually it's going to catch up to you. I think The Wire is the perfect show to show that. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen The Wire, what are you doing? It's the best show of all time. Go watch The Wire. Especially if you're a fan of this music and you haven't seen The Wire, what are you doing? Like, go watch it, like, right now. Yeah, The Wire is like a top 3. I think it's the best TV show ever, but it's definitely like top 3, top 5. Anyways, they shots the guns. A lot of sons never returned as prodigal. Yeah, so basically just in reference to the line I just said, live by the sword, but die by the sword. Live by the gun, die by the gun. Don't go around toting guns. Stupid. For what I anoint in my cup, they runneth over. The drive that kept me alive is my cunning motor. So the cup runneth over thing, I think that's just like what he creates runneth over. His creative output is so much that it's overflowing the cup. I'm not too sure what that line means, but the drive that kept me alive is my cunning motor. It's interesting that he uses the word cunning instead of smart or wise or knowledgeable. All these kind of words sort of mean smart, but they have different meanings. Like, we all know somebody who's knowledgeable, but they might not be the wisest person we know. And we might know people who are very wise, but they might not be that knowledgeable. And smart seems to be some combination of the two, but cunning seems to be its own thing too. That seems to be more like wit, quick on your feet, street smarts almost as well. So it's interesting that he uses the word cunning here. Cunning Linguists, also a great rap group. So a lot of ways that you can pull that apart, but I like that he uses my cunning motor. End of month, cops tend to front when they under quota. Damn, I've seen this before too, and it's absolutely disgusting. I mean, I've seen it on lower levels, like cops just pulling kids over at the end of the month just to get their speed ticket quotas. And like the kid was doing like 10 over or like 11 over, like just barely speeding. And it's like, that's dumb. But obviously that goes to greater extremes, right? Like drug busts. Cops plant drugs on people all the time because they need to hit a quota. The whole quotas thing is so dumb. Like, what? You have to like fill out a certain amount of crime each month, and if there's no crime, you just make up crime? It makes no sense to me at all. Yeah, I don't get that, but that definitely does happen, unfortunately. Where it's hard to walk that straight line, drunk or sober, again, just in reference to that. Yeah, like they'll pull you out of their car, say that they smell alcohol on you, which they can do to anybody, literally in any scenario ever. They can just say, I smell alcohol. It's like, well, who's going to refute that, right? Nobody is, because it's a cop saying it, and he could just totally lie about it. And then he pulls you out of the car, and then he's like, well, walk a straight line. And it's just like, it doesn't matter if I'm drunk or sober, whether I walk the line perfectly straight or if I stumble. Like, anything you see, you're just going to make up, and then I'm going to be drunk, and now I got a DUI. It's like, not that this has happened to me, but I've seen this happen to people before, and it's just so aggravating. I'm like, how? How is this real? Anyways, I guess we end the song just shitting on police. Again, the chorus just repeats itself. Please receive any yield. That's basically the whole song. Yeah, wow, what a freaking deep song. Like all of Kaw's songs, honestly. Um, there's a couple lines in there that I didn't really talk too much on. Again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. I love hearing your guys' analysis on different lines and stuff, and just your general thoughts. Let me know what songs I should cover next. I'm going to finish this album. I just got a few songs left, and then I'm open to any suggestions for any songs, especially hip hop songs like this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That always helps boost this channel in the algorithm. I really want to get to 100 subscribers. I'm like almost there, so let's try to get to 100 and then the next milestone after that. Thank you guys for watching. As always, it means a lot. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and peace.